But let's begin with an ominous warning. It's not over yet. They're the words of a prominent bikie insider who is tonight breaking the code of silence. What he has to say will send a shiver down the spine of law enforcement. Our senior correspondent, Ross Coulthart, is an expert on bikie gangs. In fact, he wrote the book on the subject. We've pulled him off assignment to work his contacts on this. Ross, what have you discovered?
Well, what we've discovered, Chris, is that those who hope that there's going to be peace in our time with lots of bikie gangs sitting around giving each other a cuddle are going to be sorely disappointed. There is going to be conflict, it's very, very likely, and it's all about the money.
They're very cold, very calculating, very cunning. There was never drive-by shootings 10 years ago. There were shootings, no doubt. There were stabbings, beatings, there's no doubt about that, but there was never drive-by. If someone had an issue with you, they had an issue with you face to face.
This is The Insider. He was in thick with the worst of the worst. Now he's in hiding and in fear for his life. What's the risk to you in speaking up?
Huge. It's a huge risk.
If his bikie mates find him, they'll kill him. He knows too much. The inside story of the Bikie Wars.
The extent of violence has gone up to prove to the other clubs, we are more violent than you, we are more volatile than you, and the ultimate is, don't with us, because this is what'll happen to you.
You know, Australia's just waking up to the problems that they've got there in relation to, you know, people like the Banditos and Hells Angels.
And this is the other insider.
What would happen if you were brought back to Australia forcibly by the law enforcement there?
Well, they would be guaranteeing me a death sentence.
Steve Utah was a prized drugs cook for the Banditos. Then he turned police informant. He too has fled far from Australia. He also knows too much about the murders and the drugs.
How big a role did the Banditos motorcycle gang play in that illicit trade?
They were the mummy and daddy of the whole operation.
These two men tell a story of rampant violence, of a culture that's long existed on the fringes of Australian society, but which is now erupting onto the streets of our major cities, putting the lives of insiders and bystanders alike at great risk. So what's going to happen? Will the clubs, as has been floated in some quarters, sit down and hold a peace meeting and make love, not war?
Well, there'll be some sort of a truce at some point, but it's not going to happen soon.
Why not?
Well, for instance, what happened last Sunday isn't going to go away quickly.
On Friday, Anthony Zervas, the brother of a Hells Angel, was buried with all the pomp of a state funeral. Last Sunday, he was bludgeoned to death at Sydney Airport. There are many players in this bikie war, but at the airport, it was the Hells Angels and the Comancheros.
As of last Monday, I was told there was an order given to kill any Comanchero on site.
A shoot on sight?
Yep.
Why would they do that?
Because of the sheer embarrassment that has been caused to the Hells Angels.
As was so vividly captured in the documentary series Gangs of Oz, bikie violence and warnings of it have been growing for years.
A lot of Middle Eastern criminals have been recruited in. A lot of Islander criminals have been recruited for muscle. And therefore, you know, they're really now developing into solely criminal groups.
Add to the mix a new, volatile and largely Middle Eastern gang called Notorious.
They're out to prove who they are and what they can do.
And you have war. They're fighting over drugs and turf, and the old code has been broken. Once the bashings and murders were kept in-house.
Never go to someone's work and pick on them. Never go to their home and get them from their home. And if you encountered them, they were not to be with women and children. They were to be on their own. That has all long gone.
So why is it happening?
Because there has been a softly approach from the law enforcement agencies who are supposed to be putting a stop to them.
The failure of police to crack down on bikies has left them to flourish. These gangs rake in millions of illegal dollars every year, profits rivaling our most successful companies. Money has brought them guns, goons and power. So what sort of money are they making from drugs? How much money have you seen?
More money than you could possibly imagine. I've seen a house full of money, money stacked to the roof. That much money in it, it was a problem.
And where are they getting that money?
Direct from the sale of drugs.
For years, Steve Utah was the Bandido's chief manufacturer of speed and ice. He saw it all, the drugs, the money and the bashings and murder used to keep rivals at bay.
You know, somebody will get beaten up or something like that, and then all of a sudden, you know, well, you beat my brother up and we'll go beat them up, and then we'll go beat 3 of them up, and these 3 will go beat these 6 up. I mean, it's just something that will just never stop until there's nothing left.
And he predicts the next battleground is Queensland.
Gold Coast, Queensland is going to be the next hotspot because the pie's got too small.
25 years ago, the seeds of today's war were sown in the bloody chapter known as the Milperra Massacre. The Comancheros and Bandidos traded shotgun blasts outside a Sydney hotel. 7 died, including an innocent girl. Milperra marked the defeat of the Comancheros in a fight over the old drug turf marijuana. Last Sunday's airport brawl was their attempt to say, "We're back." So people inside the Hells Angels, for example, you say, will be seeking retribution.
That would be the case.
The brutality of the past weeks has shocked Australia, but the warning signs have been there for years. What has been unleashed will not easily be stopped. Are more people going to die in this bikie war?
Most certainly. It's far, far from over. There's too much money, too much pride, too much respect that people are trying to get. It's far from over.
So, Ross, how does this end?
Well, we all hope there's not going to be bloodshed. That's a given. But it does appear very likely that there's too much at stake, as you've seen, for the bikie gangs not to have a blue. There's a power struggle here between major gangs, and there's the incursion of the Notorious gang and other Middle Eastern gangs onto the scene. The only way I think, and the only way that many people in the police think that this can be brought into check, is with the use of the kind of RICO laws, the racketeering laws that you've seen in the program I've got to mention. Laws that allow people to chase the money, to go after the very thing that's fueling the organised crime behind these gangs. And then we've got a hope. Until then, until we start resourcing police, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Ross Coulthart, for the moment, thanks.
Thanks, Chris.